Good day, everyone. Today we are solving polynomial equations. In this lesson, we're going to solve equations by factor techniques, which entails the zero product property, and then we're going to use the quadratic formula. All right, this is how we're going to solve. So basically, in three ways we will do it. All right, announcements for this week. Homework is now issued on a daily basis, and the amount depends on you. So that means that if you master the topic, your homework is reduced. If you're struggling, of course, I gotta give you more because practice makes perfect. When I can't teach due to behavior, it means that the work is too easy. So it will become even harder. Because the part of you guys learning is to be properly challenged. The issue that we have, and you guys don't want to be challenged. So therefore, you gotta learn what you're doing. All right? You are being prepped to answer 60 questions in 60 minutes the ACT, which you guys are required to do so. So again, as much as I like you guys, as much as I try to help you understand, I can't spend 2 weeks on one particular lesson because you're struggling. You must, find tutoring or look at some videos online that I made for you or other videos that I post online for you to have access to. So again, I cannot take too long on topics because we're halfway through the 9 weeks now. All right, grades are based on mastery of skill and effort. So far from what I have seen, and the reason why I haven't been inputting grades, one of them, because the work that I get is not of quality. It's not me seeing the true mathematical errors, because there's two issues that goes on. Either you go turn in answers that you copy from Photomath or some other websites, and it looks all perfect, but then when I give you a pop quiz, which you guys know, you don't know what's going on. So therefore, you can't pass the class because you don't know what's going on. All right? Or you just leave it blank and you just simply don't care. So we can't you can't be either or of those things. You have to, when you're struggling, you need to put some effort into it. You need to at least write down some questions so we could discuss it over in class. Phones are completely out of sight, so that means if I see it, of course, like I always been doing, I always collect the phones, I always turn them in the end of class for you. Because I'm cool like that. I'm not trying to make drama, so just don't have your phones out. Homework will play more of an integral part of class. I need for you guys to really show me what you truly, truly, truly know. I gotta see it. And I think the best way we get better if we could really have a good discussion about the homework. We will do more board presentations. So usually, I would say I try to spend at most 2 days on one lesson. Because the good thing about Algebra 2, some of the lessons have multiple components to it. Like this solving equations, this may be a 2-day thing. So day 2 of this, you may have to go to a board and just solve the equations, and we're going to spend the whole class period doing that and preparing and taking notes for it. Either you volunteer or you be volume told. It's just that easy. Volunteer means that you take an initiative which will help you out better within your academics. Reminders, Algebra 2 do demand a lot from you. I don't know what you guys think that this is going to be a cakewalk, that you don't have to do homework and you're going to pass. That's not going to ever work. You could talk to any of the kids who had me before Algebra 2. Without the homework and without the effort that is demanded of you, you will not pass this course. And don't forget about my number one golden rule in my class. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. I know for my 3A class I was gone for essentially a week, but that don't mean that you guys won't have a quiz. As soon as I come back and I see you, you're gonna have that quiz. Because you have over a week to study and to practice the material. Now you chose to not do anything. That's not on me. That falls solely on you. Be about your business. Y'all, if it's not algebra 2, I don't want to hear it. Due diligence. Make sure your homework is turned in. Self-verification. Speak up when you need to about certain things. Self-accountability. Own up to your wrong. Some of your classmates actually do a good job with being self-accountable. I love that about them. Respect the learning environment. No compliance hinders academics. Teachers recommend face. So again, I am currently in charge of your fate. Meaning, do you take another math course or not? All right. I decide what you go. So if you fail algebra 2, I make the decision. Do you roll with me again, or do I put you in ingenuity? I make those decisions. Last year, only less than 8 kids failed algebra 2. Well, actually less than 6, because they did what they're supposed to do. And to be honest with you, the seniors that are currently at the school now were the best algebra 2 kids that I have ever taught throughout the, teaching in the school district. All right, the math instruction. Y'all, please don't forget how this goes. After I get through teaching, well, before we get to that, make sure that I'm not going to spend multiple days on a single subject, a single topic. I don't have the energy nor the interest to go like that. When you work in a group, do not expect me to tell you the answer is right or wrong. I'm not doing that. On rare occasions, I'll do that. That's when after I have already taught it to you, and when we're doing master review, and I still won't do too much of that. I need for you to just see what you can do. And you keep asking me this, I may ask you questions right back. Like, for example, is it right? So what did you do to step 1 to step 2? Those are the questions that you will hear from me. So make sure that you are in compliance of my request. Students needs to present work on the board. Guys, you have to. We got to see where you at. Be calm regardless of whatever goes on. You may be mad, sad, all that. Do something. Without homework, you can't pass the course. Without studying, you will not pass the course. Bring everything to these problems. Bring me everything you got. All right, so let's not forget, after I do my example, it's from the dome to the paper. That's your independent part. So I know a few of you guys try to ask me, it's always a no. Don't ask me for nothing. I cannot help you for that at that part. And no will I. From the paper with the partner. That's when you go ahead, get your groups together, and you work in groups. On rare occasions, I may, pull a group, and I may, just hear you to have a dialogue. And again, is this correct? You guys going to get that out your heads. Because now it's going to be a point penalty because you're not allowed to ask such things like that. Because when you do that, it shows that you can't think on your own, and I can't, and no, and I won't tolerate it. Form partners with the teacher. So that means with partners, from the partners, then this is when I address any misconceptions and get things figured out from you. All right, these are so study, review videos, your work, and review the materials, your notes. You can never give up. Mistakes allow thinking to happen. Motivate each other to participate. Math can be interesting if you are a part of it. Complete the problem if you not 100% confident. Just complete it. Even if you're not confident, just put it together. You'd be amazed at what you can do on your own. Ask specific questions. Use pencil. You're going to be using the eraser a lot. Follow our mathematical process. Don't expect the teacher to tell you, yeah, that's correct. The teacher may ask you a question to help you answer. Or, if I see that you just wasting time, I may, lie to your face and say the answer is correct. And I have did that to you guys just so you could make a mistake on purpose so you could erase it. Again, when it comes to you trying to master material, that's not for me to tell you if it's right or wrong at that moment. That's for you to show me everything that you could do from your dome to the paper. That is critical. It's a brain workout. It's really just that, and helping you to think is going to make you a better person. Okay, so let's review and do a factoring challenge. I want you to factor this problem by yourself from the dome to the paper. Pause the video. All right. If you have not paused the video, please pause the video and work the problem in its entirety. If you have done so, let's move on. So this is a trinomial, and this trinomial not only have an integer in common, it also have a variable in common too. So the greatest common factor, if you did that, cool. You realize that the greatest common factor was 6x squared because 6 go into 6, 18, and 12, and they have at least, well, let me correct myself, at most, each term have at most an exponent too, because before you could get to x cubed, you gotta get to x squared first. 4, before you could get to 4, you gotta get to 2. Therefore, it has 2 as the greatest common factor. You cannot say 4. You cannot say the greatest common factor is 6s to the power of 4 because only one term has a 4 in common. You can't say 3 because 2 of these terms have a 3 that you could pull out. You could say 2 because each of these terms you could factor out an exponent of 2. Alright, so when you factor that out, did you get your trinomial to look like this? I'm going to be testing you on your ability to show me the equivalence of this by using your distributive property laws. Did you factor the inside of the parentheses? Because the inside, you could factor the parentheses in the inside. So that's the inside. And you could factor that as saying negative 2 times negative 1, negative 2 plus negative 1. And when you do that, they should give you positive 2 because 2 negatives make a positive. And when you add the 2 negatives, it's going to give you a bigger negative number. So you could be able to factor that, now put in the factor form, and this is your answer. So when you guys take my test, you're going to be expected to do all of this. Now let's pause and let's analyze what we have done. So we had a problem with a trinomial that has not only an integer in common, in terms of the GCF. It also have a variable in common. All of these three, each term, again, has a 2 you could factor out. Again, it is not 4 because if you look at 4, only one term has a 4 that you can pull out. You can't pull out 4 from a 3. You definitely cannot pull a 4 from a 2. You can't do that. So let's look at 3. 3, you cannot pull out. You can pull out a 3 from 4 and 3 from itself, but you cannot pull a 3 from 2. So let's look at the 2. The 2, you can pull out 2 from itself. You can pull 2 from the 3. You can pull 2 from the 4. So therefore, we got 6x squared. It is critical for us to understand how to factor out variables and exponents. It is beyond critical at this point. And then from there, we was able to look at the inside of that trinomial, and we realized that it was factorable. So because it was factorable, we know that we can multiply to give me positive 2, and we could add to give me negative 3, and we know that negative 2 and negative 1 gives you a positive 2 when you multiply, and when you add them together it gives you negative 3. So hence our final answer. The GCF was the 6x squared we pulled out, and the factor of the trinomials was x minus 2, x minus 1. Alright, so now we factored, and we did a 2-in-1 factoring technique, GCF, and factoring the trinomials. Now let's solve equations by factoring. Alright, so let's look at the zero product property. It states that for all real numbers a and b, if a times b equals 0, then a equals b, and then b equals 0. And this is referring to the factor. Like the previous problem where we had x minus 2, and when we had x minus 1, when we have that going on, we could set those to 0. And x minus 1 be set to 0. We know these things specifically because of the zero remainder theorem. Alright, so I am going to try this problem. So this is what I would do. You have a binomial, which is easier. And with binomials, the only thing we know is we got to pull up our greatest common factor. And when we do that, we get 12x. Again, in terms of these variables with exponents, this has an exponent of 1. So you're going to pull out a exponent of 1 because both of these has an exponent of 1. Before you could get to 2, you got to get to 1. You cannot pull out 2 because there's no 2 over here. Alright? So 12x is the greatest common factor. And then we rewrite what's left, which is x plus 3. And of course, we could double check our work and multiply all this, and we would get 12x squared plus 36x. So I may ask you to check your work by using your distributive property, which makes it possible for expressions to be different to be equivalent. You're going to set everything to 0, the factor x plus 3 to 0, and a GCF. And then you're just going to solve for x. And when you solve for x, the first one is going to be 0. And then when you solve for the second one, it's going to be negative 3. How easy was that? Just that easy. And also, the leading exponent, which was 2, told you how many solutions that you can have. All right, so our solutions, or another word for solution, is zeros or -3 and 0. So zeros is another word for a solution. 0 is another word for a solution. All right, I want you to try doing this from your, by yourself exactly as I did the previous example. All right, pause the video and try it. All right, welcome back. And let's see what you did. Did you get the greatest common factor to be 12x again? Did you rewrite it as 3x plus 7 on the inside and then 12x on the outside? Did you set them to be equations? Did you get the solution of 0 for the first one? And did you get the solution of -7/3 for the second? If you did that, you are a beast. Good job. And the solutions, or zeros, is x equals -7/3, comma 0. All right. So that was that way of doing it. Now, let's try our factor techniques. So with this trinomial, we know our procedure is factoring using the trinomial method. And when we factor, we realize that 3 times 2 gives me 6, and 3 plus 2 gives me 5. So when you factor, you get just x plus 3, x plus 2. Then you're going to do like we did in the previous, set them both to 0, and solve for x for each one. And your solutions, or zeros, is -3 and -2. Uh-oh, we about to end doing some hard stuff. About to go through the challenge. All right. Now, this is the factoring that we have did with the 2 and 1. We did the greatest common factor, and we also did the factor in the trinomial. Those two things we did. So why don't you look back at your notes and try this one out by yourself. Pause the video. All right. I trust that you have worked the problem out. You did this by yourself, because if you try to do it with me and you have not paused the video or tried out by yourself, you are hindering yourself, and you're going to fail my quizzes and tests because you're not going to remember. If you have done so, kudos, and you will be ready and you will pass my quiz and test. So let's try it. Did you write the greatest common factor to be 6x squared? Did you factor this out? Did you get this as your factor? Now, did you set all three of these to 0 and solve for x for each one? So for the 6x squared equals 0, you're going to get 0. You're going to get 0 there, 2 there, and then you're going to get 1 there. So your solutions are 0, 1, and 2. Exactly like that. If you did all this, good job. You are cool, you are smart, and you are going places. All right, now. You try this one now. Now pause the video and try this. Alright, I trust that you have tried this video. Try this problem on your own, because you're trying to make sure you master and get it. So let's do it. Did you get to the greatest common factor? 5x to the power of 6, good job. And did you factor? Now this is a problem which you guys to be careful on. If you did not get this step, get this answer. Remember, you must use your distributive property to see what you get. 5x 8 minus 15 x power of 7 minus 20 x 6. Because by distributive property, you get this right here. And remember, the polynomial expressions may look differently, but they are equivalent by the distributive property. Alright? So just remember. So let's move on. So now you focus on the inside, and now you're trying to factor the inside by using that trinomial method. So you realize that -4 times +1, and dot means multiplication, gives you -3. -4 when you multiply. Sorry. But when you add -4 with 1, with +1, you get -3. Alright? After you get them in factor form, so the 5x power 6 at the 0, and you're going to put each factor form to 0, because that was the 0 product property tell us to do. The 0 product property tells us to set each factor to 0 and solve for x. And so when we solve for x for all three, we get -1, 0, and 4. If you did all of that, you is everything I want in a student. You give me life. You give me that ooh ah ah sensation. Alright. So what determines the number of solution? The answer to that is the biggest exponent. So your biggest, or another word of saying that your leading exponent, tells us how many solutions you have. Because you have x to the power of 5, everything else is smaller than 5. That means you're going to have 5 solutions. That's not always a guarantee, but you should have 5 solutions. Another word for solution is 0. Right? And you are not allowed to give the number 0. Say the 0 equals 3, 2, 1. You can't say that. You're not allowed to say that. You can't use the number 0. You have to write out 0. So we should be good on that. Alright, now we gotta solve equations by other ways. This is where it's going to get a little bit harder. The GCF and the fact that trinomial combo wasn't so hard. And that's if you know how to factor out the variable with the exponents. So this is where we at. So the facts that we have to remember: x squared has the inverse of the square root of x, and the square root of x is equivalent to 1/2. Like, for example, if I was to say the multiplicative inverse of 4, you would say that's going to equal 1/4. And that is the reciprocal we're going to leave it as that, the rec, or the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 4 is 1/4. So 1/5 has a reciprocal of 5. That's all that is. Again, do not stretch yourself out. Don't go crazy over something that is not that difficult to remember. Reciprocal, that means numbers could be flipped up as a fraction. So if I ask you for the reciprocal or the multiplicative inverse, 4 is 1/4. And I will attach an additional video about the multiplicative inverse for you. Alright? So when you solve the polynomial equation, you're going to have, in most cases, 2 solutions. Or if you have a negative number in the square root, which you can never ever have, but if you do, it becomes imaginary. I means imaginary, means that it's not real, meaning that you can't see it. If it's part of my imagination, you can't see my imagination, can you? If I'm imagining things, that means that you can't see it. This is important right here. The word roots, 0, and solutions all mean answers to the equation. This is very critical for you to have. Alright, so this is what's going on. This is specific details. So when you get to a square root, and say like if it's square root of 5, square root of 5 is positive, right? So that means that you're going to have like 2 solutions, plus or minus -5. If you have 0 in the square root, that means you only have 1 solution. So it's just going to be just like, for example, 5 square root 0, that means it's just going to be just 5, because square root of 0, 0, it means nothing. But if I have a negative number like -5, that means that I have 2 imaginary solutions. So plus or minus 5i, because it's not real. Again, if it's a negative number, you cannot have a real solution, so it's being replaced with I. Alright, here I go. Let's try this problem. So this is pretty easy for us. So we make 49 -49. And then back to what I told you about x squared becoming the square root, because I have to take the square root of of x squared. I got a negative square root, right? But we know the square root of 49 is 7, correct? But it's negative, which we are not allowed to have because it's imaginary. So that means it's going to be plus or minus 7i. And the I comes from the negative sign. You are not allowed to have a negative sign in the square root. You are not allowed to have a negative number in the square root. You are not allowed to have a negative number in the square root. So our answer is going to be plus or minus. And again, because we're dealing with the x squared, we got two solutions. So it's plus or minus. And because it was a negative number in the square root, like negative 49, you end up with plus or minus 7i. All right? That's our answer. Our solutions are zeros, our roots. All right. I want you to try this one on your own. This is all by yourself. Pause the video. All right. Now, of course, this problem looks a bit different than what we have done in the previous problem. Just like I have told you before, not everything is going to look exactly alike. I need for you guys to get this from your head. You're not going to have the same looking problems on the same test. I know you guys are freaking out because you didn't get x squared plus 6. You wanted that because it was very similar to what you had with the previous problem. Now I decided to throw in an additional 6 in front of that. I could legally do that. This is how we do math. I need for you guys to get over the fear of it doesn't look like what we just done. The techniques are still exactly the same. You are still solving for x. So, with that being said, let's get into it. If you actually worked the problem out, kudos. If you didn't, you need to go back and work it out. So let's do it. So of course we take the additive inverse of 6, which makes negative 6. And we move negative 6 to the other side. Exactly, right? Nothing different. It may look different, but the steps are exactly the same still. You may have to do an additional step, which you should have known by now, considering since we've been solving equations since we first came to my classroom. Alright, isolate x by dividing by 6 on both sides, and when we divide it, we get x squared equals negative 1. But here's the problem with that. We got to take the square root of x squared. And when we do that, we have a negative number in the square root, which we know we're not allowed to have. And when we do, it becomes imaginary. So negative square root numbers have two imaginary solutions. So it's going to be x equals plus or minus 1i, or just I by itself. That wasn't so bad. Again, solving equations is a skill that you've been taught time and time over again. If it's not retained by now, it's because you choose to not want to retain it. Because you just won't write numbers on papers and think that you will get a grade. Unfortunately, that is not how mathematics work. All right, this last solving equation technique is called the quadratic formula. It's when a trinomial isn't factorable or you don't want to factor it. So you're going to use this quadratic formula. And when you think of the quadratic formula, think of the song x equals the opposite of b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You just got to remember that song. That's going to help you. It's going to annoy you, but it's going to help you remember it. All right. Like this is not factorable. It isn't. You could try it for yourself. I'm not doing it for you, but you're gonna realize that it's not gonna work out. So we gotta use our quadratic formula, which goes x equals the opposite of b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So with that being said, let's know where our numbers goes. So a was 9, b's -6, and c equals 5, +5. So you take your coefficients and you place them into the formula as you see fit. So x equals the opposite of 6 plus or minus square root -6 squared minus 4 times 9 times 5 all over 2 times 9. So you put it in place and simplify it. Work from the inside. Or you can work from the outside. You see two negatives, it makes a positive, right? So we know about this, but now walk inside, work inside. And when you work inside the radical, you should have gotten -144 when you worked it from the inside. And the two negatives make 6 positive. 2 times 9 becomes 18. And then you simplify. And again, because your biggest exponent is 2, but watch out now, you have a negative number in the square root. That means you're going to have 2 imaginary solutions. So when you do that, you can simplify stuff. So your answer you should get is inside the radical is plus minus 12i 6 over 18. This is not your final answer because you can simplify this a little bit more. I know I went too fast on that one, but I want you to simplify the 6 over 18. You can simplify that. And when you simplify that, you should know your full complete answer. But I want you to do that because I'm not doing it. And yes, most likely I will put that question on the test just to see did you do what I just asked of you to do. Alright? So why don't you try this? Now, I'm not done with I want you to use the quadratic formula on this one. So remember, x equals the opposite of b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Put in the formula, try it out. And remember, if you have a negative number in the square root, it's imaginary. If it's a positive number in the square root, that means you got 2 real solutions. So pause the video and try it out. Right? Did you put everything in place? Did you put -2 to be A, -7 to be B, and C to be negative 9. Did you do that? If you did, you are awesome. Did you simplify the radical? Did you get 121 in the radical? 49 over 4. Did you... Well, hold up. If you got to this point, I get it. I understand. That is correct. Now, this is the part when I want to add extra stuff for you to do. So, we know the square root of 121 becomes 11. So, because you have a whole number, an integer here and an integer here, you could break this apart into 49 plus 11 over 4. So when you add 49 plus 11, you get 60 over 4, which simplifies to 15. And also, you could break that part again to become 49 minus 11. And 49 minus 11 is 38 over 4, which simplifies to 19 halves. And your answer you're going to get is 15 and 19 halves. And the only reason why you get an answer like this is because when you're dealing with perfect squares in your answer, like for example 16 is a perfect square of 4, right? So when you see that, you are expected to break that down. You cannot leave the square root of a perfect square number because square root of 16 is 4. If I was to ask you for 100, you should know the square root of that should be 10. So you need to just keep those basic principles in mind. And of course, I will link an additional video about the quadratic formula if you need just that. Okay, I want you to try this one. And again, all these trinomials that we've been working so far were not factorable. So if you try to factor it, good luck. All right. Pause the video and try it. All right. If you have worked this problem out, you are a wonderful student. If you have not, you've been a naughty student who's going to fail Algebra 2. So let's do it. So we labeled, and we know that A is 1 because when you see a variable by itself, it's always going to have the coefficient of 1 by itself, so it's going to be 1x. So we know A, B, C. Did you put in the formula? X equals negative 6 plus or minus square root 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 11 all over 2 times 1. If you did that, cool. Did you simplify 36 plus 44? Did you get 80? Negative 60? Negative 6 plus or minus 80 over 2? Now again, because it's a positive number, and you can break down 80, and it could be broken down to 4 times square root of 5. And because you have something that you can't break down like a square root of 5, that means that it's going to stay just like that. And there's nothing else you can do about it because of that square root of 5. So it's going to be negative 6 plus or minus 4 square root of 5 over 2. Alright, just know you got to use what's being taught. And you got to use a lot of what's being taught. Thinking is the only way. There's no monkey see, monkey do, because I know you guys think, oh, if it looks exactly like 2 plus 2 on the test, I want to see 2 plus 2. No, that's not how math works. It would never work like that. I need for you guys to make peace and get over it. All the factor techniques I have showed you is your responsibility to practice them. And I will link additional videos for you to practice the quadratic formula and dealing with square roots.